This is Dance Studio 411, where we answer your real life questions about your toughest studio life predicaments, parent problems, teacher turnover, student challenges, policy dilemmas, and so much more. Let's talk about what's keeping you awake at night and what you can do about it. Here are your hosts, Suzanne Blake Gerety and Jill Tirone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Dance Studio 411 podcast. I'm Jill Tirone, and I'm so excited to have Suzanne Blake Gerety on our call today. She is my partner in crime, and we are getting up every day to help you keep your passion for dance alive as you grow your dance studio business. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today, really looking at rediscovering that passion. This is the time of year as this is launching, and as you're listening to this, that we are feeling a little bit of the pinch of burnout. We are feeling tired. We have holiday performances that we're getting through. We're dealing with family things at the holidays, all of the things. So Suzanne, welcome to the podcast. I cannot wait to dive in with you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks everyone for listening. Gosh, I mean, these are our best conversations, right? Where we can share what it's really like and how much, I just want to acknowledge everyone who's listening. And running a dance studio, it's the most beautiful business because it's difference making and it's creative and you give, students a place to be self-expressed. But boy, is it complicated. And sure, it does take an extraordinary skill set, a massive amount of juggling tasks and things. And as we continue to face a world of complicated things and uncertainty and multiple ways of people wanting information, it doesn't seem to get easier. It seems to get a little bit more hard. So this episode today, I really want it to be a gift for your heart, so that you can find that passion again, because listen, we all need a reboot and a refueling of our energy, right, Jill?
We do, and you do this so well. Why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on you? I know we have new listeners to the podcast, and those that aren't familiar, Suzanne, you have a wonderful background. So in your own words, because you can definitely do it better than I can right now, share your background, the amazing dance studio background that you have, and then everything that you're doing with Revolution and change management. I think it's going to showcase how not only qualified, but just from your heart, how passionate you are for this type of material that we're going to share today.
Yes, definitely. So I was born into the dance studio business. My mom owned and operated a family dance studio for nearly 50 years. I learned to clean the studio, sew the costumes, run the backstage operations, in an era where I felt like the recital day was better than Christmas Day. And so, this business is in me, and I'm so proud of my mom. We transferred our legacy to some of our longtime teachers who are carrying it on in her name, and they're doing a great job. And through all of that, my background, I went to get my undergraduate degree in psychology and child development, which just sort of served me as my passion for lifelong education, being an educator. And then I went back to finish off a master's degree. I finished my MBA during COVID, with a focus on growth and innovation. And part of that, Jill, we're going to share with all of you listening, is really what prompted the science behind leading change. And if there's ever a place where change is happening, it's at a dance studio. Every year, new students, new people, new developmental challenges, new teachers. I mean, new things happening in the world. So we're going to share a couple tips on this podcast about how you can really leverage what's going on for yourself. But over a decade ago, I had the opportunity to join the Revolution team along with Jill, and we have had the chance to really make a difference globally in dance. And so my day-to-day job now, I get to be, impacting so many studios, and it's at the heart of it all, though, while there might be a variety of things, everyone is a heart-centered leader. I've not yet ever met a dance studio owner or someone who's running this business who doesn't care about the kids or the people at the heart of it. So with that being said, as director of channel marketing and customer experience, we get up every day trying to make your dance lives a little easier. So I also love coffee, and I love my kids, and I love my husband, and I love a golden retriever and a couple cats too. So anyways, that's me.
That is definitely you. Okay, Suzanne. So let's talk about, I hate to say the word, but business burnout. Really, It happens. It's happening now. It's happening more frequently. I think it's just more prevalent than it ever has been. We're here, you're up in New Hampshire. I'm down here in Buffalo, New York. There's even like seasonal affective disorder. There's a lot going on that goes into what we're working with when it comes to studio owners and their businesses. It's a lot. So you have very specific things to talk about today that are amazing, because it really will tease out how you can spark joy, how you can get that passion back,
Yes.
work towards things in the coming years. So let's start with a little bit of background on what we're talking about today. And then you have these 3 specific things that we're going to go right into.
Exactly. I mean, Jill, you and I, we've been talking about burnout for over a decade, because here's the thing. Burnout is, everyone's susceptible to it. It often creeps up on you. It often hits you like, why don't I want to do any of this anymore? Why do I just want to like drive to the mall and just go shopping and eat, Annie's pretzels and watch a movie? That's okay. That's normal to feel that way, but we have to have what I call cues to make sure we don't get stuck in that spiral, and we have to have like an early warning sign to get ourselves out of it. So if it is anything you take away from this call today, these 3 questions, I highly recommend you take some time for yourself to reflect on them, and also please do pass them along to, if you work with a staff or a small team. Very insightful, super easy, but really give you some insight onto why are you feeling this way. So I also want to just disclaimer, burnout is a very vast topic in the world of like organizational psychology. There are a lot of experts on that. You can find your lane on burnout. Years ago, Jill and I, during the midst of the COVID crisis, there was new research coming out about how much the physical environment was playing into burnout. Today's topic is really more focused on the personal side of burnout, not necessarily, you know what I mean, Jill? Like we're talking more about the personal side of this, I'd say.
Yeah. And as you go through these questions, that will become a little more evident. And so just so you know, I know we have a lot of listeners that love to take us on walks or listen in your car. These questions are going to be spelled right out for you in this podcast, in the page that we have. So you can go back and grab them. You'll be able to grab them for your faculty too. I love the fact that you want and are encouraging them to share with the people that they're close with as well, because this will definitely help. So yes, we're approaching it from that very heart-centric place today.
Yeah. And fun facts for those of you that have known me for a long time, or maybe you didn't, there was a time when schedules allowed for Jill and I to do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I've done a lot of business coaching over the last decade. These are the 3 what I would call intake questions. I can't work with someone if they don't answer these questions, because everything just feels like all the problems are all the things. So this is basically your free version of a very valuable consulting session that I really want you to use. I want you to have this as a gift. It's so basic, but it's so good. So are you ready?
We're ready.
I don't know if you're a notebook kind of person. I am a colored pen or pencil or a pretty notebook or pretty paper, but you might want to type this out on the computer. Up to you. 3 questions. You start by asking yourself, what tasks, roles, or responsibilities do I love and have a passion for? Like, what am I passionate about? What are the things that I get up and I could do them, and the time just goes by so fast and I don't even feel like I'm working, and it's just like, oh, I'm in my zone. Write those down. Think about it. What are they? It could be that, and Jill, we talked about this before, which is this might make you sad. There might be a moment where you get a little bit teary-eyed about this and say, wow, I love XYZ, but I don't have time for it anymore. It's okay. Write it down. Find your way to what do you love and have a passion for. Don't make yourself wrong. If it's something like, I love teaching preschool dancers, write that down. If you've had to work your way up into running the business and you've had to let go of something that you used to love to do, I want you to go back and write that down.
Yeah. So to qualify that, you do not need to be actually doing these things right now. It could be things that you've done in the past. I would even venture to say, could it even be something that you haven't tried yet, but you just know you're going to love it?
Sure. It could be something exactly. Write that down. Guess what? There's no wrong answers to this little 3-question quiz. Mm-hmm. Second question is going to be probably the easiest one for you to answer, or maybe the last one will be, but the second one is, what tasks, roles, and responsibilities do you have to do, but you're not really interested in them? I can tell you the answer to these as an example, but basically you have to do them. You're just like, ugh, I do them because I have to. Things like pay the bills. You pretty much, if you're the name on the checkbook, you have got to sign the you have to sign the checks. Some of the stuff that's just sort of what I call you got to file the taxes, you got to sign the checks, you have to pay the rent. These are things you have to do. Now you can bring in a support team to help you with this, but most of the time it's on your lap. Write them down. Write them all down. In fact, you'll be surprised at the length of this list in some cases because you're just like, you're the person.
Quick question for you, Suzanne. So as I'm thinking about this would be something that I personally would probably draft and start. And then, as I'm cooking dinner one night or I'm driving to the studio, that's another one for that list. So you may want to just kind of percolate on it for a day or two as well, because you might have some things that you haven't thought of, or as you go through your day to day, you're like, oh, let me put that on the list.
Yeah, exactly. You might want to take a little bit of time for this. So the third question, this is the one that's probably the easiest one, which is, what tasks, roles, or responsibilities do you procrastinate and that drain your energy and you would love to get rid of? These are the things that you look at the list and you're like, oh, not again, or oh, I hate this so much, or this makes me just want to take a nap. You can almost sometimes get a physical response to things in this. It's the things you avoid. It's the things you procrastinate. Sometimes the things that you're procrastinating are simply because you don't have enough information to take it to the next step, which is why you need to write it down. So, Joe, as an example, we talked about this earlier. As a business owner, you're very busy. And I don't own a business anymore because we've legacy turned and I work for Revolution. But one of the things that was draining me was just something like meal prep. We talked about this before. I love to cook for my family. Yay, I love to cook for my family, but not Monday through Friday when it's like absurd and everybody's running different directions and no one's eating when I'm cooking anyway. So I had this story that I'm like, oh, if I'm going to be the mom that figures it all out and like I like to eat healthy, I have to do all of this myself. No. Or something procrastinate could be, you think you have to do all the social media at your studio. Like, I have to do every post myself. No, we have answers for that. You do not. Maybe one of the things that drains your energy is responding to emails. No, I have yet to meet someone who wakes up and is like, I'm a dance studio owner. I love this inbox. But we can help you with that.
Exactly. Yeah. These are real world examples that make complete sense to me. And you even mentioned laundry. Like, don't forget, it doesn't all have to be business related, but the things at home that might be draining your energy are then going to transfer over into the studio life because you're coming into it tired and you're not necessarily all that jazz because you're worn out. You're just not able to do it because you're worn out. So think about those things, and like cleaning the studio, guys, washing down the mirrors, all of that stuff. It's a lot.
Yeah. And so here's what I want when you're listening to this podcast, because Jill's going to link out to the training. We've done a more comprehensive training that you can access as a member of Dance Studio Owner that really helps you action on this. But I want, as a listener to this podcast, for you to say, it's okay to outgrow things. Repeat after me. It is okay to outgrow things. In fact, that's to be expected and normal. What you used to do yesterday, a la even 5 years ago, okay, time to turn that over to someone else, or time to let that go. Now, when you go back and you look at what are the things you have a love and a passion for, if you're stuck on this, ask someone in your life. If you get really stuck, say, what's my superpower? What's my superpower? What am I really good at? The people around you will tell you what they think you have a love and a passion for. Like, if you're really stuck on this and you're really burnt out and you're like, I don't love anything anymore. I don't love anything. I'm not passionate about anything. Start asking people, what's my superpower? Right, Jill?
That's a great way to reframe that. And unfortunately, we know there are listeners listening to this right now that are feeling that exact feeling. They are so burned out. They can't quite put it into words. So superpower is great. For those of you listening, when my kids were younger, I stopped teaching for a while and I just went back to it a few years ago. It has been wonderful to come back to it because I realized that was something that I love to do and I have a passion for, and I'm talented and I can really do this well, and it means something to me so much. And so I had to let go of some other things to do that though. I had to let go of, again, like the meal prep or planning it, or call in the troops. Who's going to fold the laundry tonight, or make sure that my neighbor's going to drive, somebody to one studio and I'm going to be at the other studio. You find a way to do it, but it will become crystal clear when you start to actually write out the answers to these questions.
Yeah. And here's the thing, if you want to work with your team, there's a few things I do. These are like how do you hack your way out of being burnt out? Literally, I ask them, how am I going to get out of this rut? Because listen, everybody listening is, you can't work any harder. You are the hardest worker I know. In fact, you're working harder than most people would ever even consider. And so I just want to acknowledge your creativity, your dedication, your perseverance, your grit. It's amazing. However, we need a hot minute. And sometimes you need a hot minute by changing your scenery. So if these questions, don't sit and answer these questions at the studio desk where you find it monotonous. Go to the coffee shop, go out into nature, take a walk. I don't know, take your team bowling, do something silly. Nothing gets people who are really proficient at things out of their comfort zone, like taking them to do something that they're not proficient at. As an example, maybe you're not very good at bowling. Take people bowling, or like one of those paint nights. Like, most people are nervous about looking like a beginner. And so I want to circle this back to the whole point of this podcast, which is getting in touch with the beginner mind, getting in touch with your lifelong learning, getting in touch with the passion that got you to this place. When you started your dance studio, you were like, oh yeah, I got jazz hands for this. This is amazing. And if for any moment you're like, what did I get myself into again here? We've got you. This is the group that sees you. We know the work you're doing is awesome, but you have to take the time to pull yourself up and look down at what's progressed and then make new decisions. Your business, let me give you this little secret, everybody. You ready for it? Even my mom and I talked about this. Just because you've been in business for X amount of years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it is not going to get easier. Let me repeat that. It is not going to get easier. If anything, it's going to get harder because your competition is watching you. The market demands change. The world economics so we have to if it's not going to get easier, we have to get smarter, stronger, more healthy around the work we're doing. And so that's my group. That's you've got this. And so it's also my encouragement for you to know doing this alone is hard. So like, lean on the people in your life, lean on the resources. We're here for you.
Absolutely. Our community is here. So if you answer these 3 questions and you think on it, we can, I would dare say, guarantee that you can help rediscover that passion. Like you mentioned, Suzanne, the things that brought us to the studio to begin with, to start the business, to be with the families, to be with those students. So we hope this has helped. We would love to hear from you. Always leave us a comment. Make sure you share and follow. And thank you, Suzanne, for sharing all of this wonderful information. We love having you.
Yeah, I'm grateful. And I again, thank you for all that you do for dance. We see the great work. You're making a difference. And Jill, thanks for having me today. And we'll till next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Dance Studio 411. Visit us online at dancestudio411.com for more great resources and to submit a question for a future episode. Our #1 goal is to help you build a successful dance studio business and keep your passion for dance alive.